Oh, cool, we're recording. Thanks for the countdown, Screencast 5. So here I'm kind of doing an update on how to analyze survey data, because that can be a bit tricky, right? Because surveys get a little bit different data than labs or databases or simulations. So here's some actual survey results from like a class climate survey I did like 2 years ago. And first thing we want to do here is after all the data is entered, in this case all 60 participants, right, and make sure you have a participant number. You're going to highlight everything, and this is only after all the data is in. You're going to go up here in the search bar and make it a table. Format as table. You can pick whatever you want. I'm going to do purple. Okay. It'll just be like yes. You can click OK. And now you see, right, got a little bit of design, but more importantly, we got these little filters up here. The reason for that is now if I want to see like, I wonder if my last class of the day feels different, I can filter for just period 7 and look at their responses and kind of look at them. So that can be useful because one of the things you want to do with a survey is break down your data by those demographic categories you looked at and see like, hey, is there a difference between men and women? Is there a difference in class period and that sort of stuff? And having this sort of built-in filter here can help you really like kind of pare down the data and look at that. So next thing to kind of recognize on your survey is you have two types of data. You have the multiple choice questions like these, right, where there are only a certain number of answers. Those are categorical data. Then over here, right, I had answers where it's free response, and I will call this commentative data. And you have to treat these a little bit differently in the way you analyze them. Most of your analysis will be on the categorical data with those discrete categories, while these are more like spices and like little interesting things you put on. But I will show you guys a way to analyze these in a little bit. So for the categorical data, the biggest thing you need to do here is remember this categorical data, you need to put a row next to it. Okay. Name this row, right? Either question 1 or in this case, this question is about respect, so I'll call it respect numerical codes. Because in order to actually do work with your survey results, they need to be numbers, right? You can't really do mathematical analysis with words. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go down here. Okay. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to make a key for question 1. Have response and number. In this case, I have 5 responses for question 1. I got strongly agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree. Okay, I'm going to assign each of these a number. The easiest way to do that is just, especially for the sort of like Likert scale, that's what it's called. This, strongly agree to strongly disagree. It's just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can do the same thing with like male or female. You can do like, okay, male is 1, female is 2, other is 3. Ultimately, the numbers are somewhat arbitrary, so just pick something that's logical. Like I wouldn't make this 50, 27, 83. Like pick something that kind of makes sense. The easiest way to do that is just go up or down by 1 with each different response. So now that I have my key here, right, of like this, I'm going to go through and just kind of put in the codes. So agree is a 4, strongly agree is a 5, 4 again, a 3, 5. And if I was... There is a way to have Excel automate this, but it's actually more complicated than just doing it this way and takes longer. So it's actually easier, even for me who knows how to do it, to just do it this way. A little bit easier to do it. 4, 4, 5, 3, 4, 3, 5, 3. Almost done. I got. So I'm going to zoom in here real quick on participant number 55. And this is why we give people participant numbers. Because if you notice, compared to everyone else, they are the one person who strongly disagreed with a lot of these statements, which is interesting, right? They're an outlier. So now, because we gave the number, we could be like, cool, looking at participant 55, we can see even though they strongly disagree with questions, when it came to this, right? They seem to respond somewhat more positively in the continual commentative data, which means either one, understanding the content is a big motivator for this person about how they feel about the class, or that because of their positive responses, they maybe just clicked the wrong button. But because we have a participant number to talk about, we can say, oh, looking at participant 55. Now we can talk about those outliers and those people like that. So anyways, kind of back to the data here. Right now we got our key, right? And all this, we want to get some data. We want to get some actual data. I'm going to move this down a bit so we have a little more room for the actual important stuff. So what you want to do is we're going to do response and count. And all this is going to use the same general formula because you don't have to count by hand with Excel, which is very useful. Okay. So the formula for counting is count if. Okay. So how that works is you do equal count if, you give Excel a range, which is the numbers you want to look at, and then, right, comma, right, just I'm done with range. Now it's time for criteria. Criteria here could be, it's just 5, right, because that's what strongly agree goes to. Okay, so now I got 24 5, so that means I have 24 responses of a strongly agree. Then I'll repeat the same process, count if, do the range, and comma. What I'm looking for this time is a 4. So 26 4s. I'm just shortcutting it by copying and pasting the code because overall a lot of the stuff is the same. Nope. All right, do the same thing with the 2 and equal count if. And we pick the range, which is all of this table here, and strongly disagrees of 1. So now I have a count. So I can say, cool, there are 24 strongly agrees, 26 agrees, so, and then so on and so forth. Okay. Last thing I'm going to kind of show you before we go on, because a lot of this you just repeat. So again, I do the same process about like assigning numbers, counting it all up for questions, like all the different questions. But I'm not going to show that here in the interest of time. So last thing I'm going to try to show you guys how to do is how to make a chart from this. Full disclosure, I tried to make a pie chart with this data like 5 different times. It was not working because Excel is just sometimes like that. But you can do other things. So what you want to do is for the graph, at least, you actually want to highlight the actual words because graphs can work with words. So you're going to highlight all the responses, go to Insert up top, so Insert, and then go to go to Recommended Charts. Okay, you should see here there's a clustered bar graph that has the count of all the different responses. Please note disagree is not mentioned here because there is no disagree. I'm going to click OK. Okay. I might open a pivot chart. Okay, sorry, Excel's being weird. It is made a different chart for me when I did this. Okay, so sorry. Give me a second. I didn't expect Excel to do all that for me for no reason. Thank you, Excel, for being extra. Insert bar graph to the bar. Yeah, sorry. Sometimes when you make stuff a table, it gets weird. Okay. So it's going to do this when you make, if you're following my thing, don't worry too much about it. Excel is trying to be extra. You don't need that. So it looks like, okay. So one, you get to double check the graph. So apparently hello, black bar. Sorry. Excel's freaking out. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's now just a black bar on my screen. So I'm going to, okay, cool. I guess it's just there today. Hello. The raw, unfiltered truth of working with Excel. Sometimes everything breaks. Because I think I broke my computer. And I'm still recording. Okay, I'm back. You might notice that things look different. My entire Excel sheet crashed. So, yay. Sometimes Excel is Excel. And I know I use it a lot, and I talk about how great it is. But Excel sometimes is a bit of a mess up. So, barring trying to make a graph with this, you can do it here. Right, I have the counts as numerical because that was a little bit easier for me when I was working on this art because it's a little bit shorter for me there. Right, but you can, once you have the counts, you can actually do all the different types of charts. You can do a pie chart, a bar chart, or a column. I'd recommend possibly both. Right, you can't have too many graphs on an IA. So once you got that count done, right, you can do a pie chart and a bar chart or a column chart. Right. I'm gonna do something here for my purposes. And that should work even if you disaggregate. And that should work even if you have there we go. Yeah, so it still works even if you have data labels. So it seems once you have this sort of like summary chart that you made with the count if function and your labels, that you can pretty easily get a pie chart and a column bar chart from that data. I'll show you with the example we started with, but that entire Excel sheet crashed, closed, and fell into the void, and I can no longer get it. So that's fun. So again, whenever you get to a question, if it's categorical, right, like for example, where this one had discrete answers, you'll just convert to numbers. The key, I didn't make the key on this one because this is my one where I was experimenting with stuff, but again, you should have a like key for respect question. And it's response, numerical code. Let's copy those, so type it twice, and it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 4, 2, and 1. So again, make sure every question you have a count chart, a numerical code chart, and then highlight this, add in, I don't know, a pie chart. Make sure that when you add in a graph, you do need to edit it because obviously me putting this in my eye means nothing. Count of what? So if you go over here, right, you can go to chart design and format up top and do stuff like add a chart element. For example, maybe I want to change the title, which you guys can just be like distribution of responses for question on respect. Boom. Okay. You can also use chart element over here, do things like add a legend, right, and where it is, as well as do things like data labels. Like that. I'd recommend you add data labels. That way it's a little bit easier to see what the actual numbers represent. So here I can see that there are 24 strongly agrees, 26 agrees, 8 neutrals, 0 disagrees, and 1 strongly disagree. And then same thing should happen when I make a bar chart. Again, you highlight your data, insert, recommended charts. I got a clustered bar here. Again, count is not a good title for a chart. Where'd it go? There it is. Come on, Excel, you're making me look back in front of the wizards. All right, so you can just go up here, change to, right, count of responses for question of respect. And same thing, right, when you click on it, there should either be a plus box, or you can go over here in the chart design and add an element. Right here, you might want to add axes titles. But you don't really need it, right? You can do things like add an axis, add titles. You want to add a different title to any of these. You can do chart table, you can do data labels, which I'd recommend again. You could put the actual table here. I'd recommend at least putting the data labels on here. And you can see here one of the benefits of doing both a pie chart and a column is the disagree being 0 is shown a lot more clearly here because it's very hard for a pie chart to show a response of 0. So again, you'll just repeat that whole process of converting the categorical answers to numbers, doing the counts, and then using the counts to make the charts for each of the questions. So I repeat that whole process with question 2, 3, and 4, and all that, so on. So we also have here on the what do we call it, like the commutative data, right? These were free response questions. So I can't really convert these into numbers, right? Because there's no discrete categories I can sort them into. So there are two ways to handle this data. One is you just kind of look at it and kind of be like, cool, if I'm going to look at all the people who said strongly agree to this question, again, this is why you want to make it a table, where I can be like, right, what went well, right? You can kind of look at this. Okay. Or on the other hand, you can be like, people that were neutral, what did they say for these questions, right? That kind of thing. So again, that's also the reason why we have the filters built in. Okay. If you do want to do some sort of data analysis with these things, what you do is you're just going to copy all the responses. Boop. We're going to go on to the internet and go to a word cloud generator. Okay. This one works. And then you can just paste all of that and hit enter. And you can make a word cloud. And then you can obviously save this. This is not really, again, numerical data, but this can be like trends. For example, how big the word here is how often it showed up. For example, everything was a pretty common response and what went well. Learning. Maybe you know more stuff like went. Yes. So again, but this can be one way to actually look at the data, right? Is take all your like commutative data and put it into a word cloud generator, right? And then generate a word cloud based on that. So last thing to show you guys is how to actually get a correlational value from your data. Because the whole point of the survey is trying to figure out how does one value, right? How does, I don't know, your class period affect how effective you feel, right? That's what we're trying to do with our surveys is figure out how one social indicator affects another. For example, it might be like, how does your view on, I don't know, the Beatles affect how likely you are to protest, right? So you have to have and there's a way to find a actual number that tells you how strongly correlated those two things are. The way you do that is you find a R value calculator, right? I usually do this one, social science statistics, because I know it and it works. Okay, and you'll go to calculator. Please make sure you cite this because this is a source you're using. Anyways, all you have to do here is put one set of numerical values on the X side. Right, so I'm going to put all my numbers over here. Right, this is class period. On the Y values, I will put how respected they feel. Nope. Make sure you don't get any words in there. Just like most calculators, online calculators don't deal well when you deal with words. So, have all my X values. Right, so this is the class period they're in, and this is how respected they feel. Okay. It might yell at you because you have to have the same number of responses. So if you have like 27 X values and 28 Y values, you can't do this. You'd have to get rid of the ones that have no like pair. So let's say like this person from period 6 refused to answer. I'd have to also delete them as well to make sure it's even on both sides. Okay. But once you do that, you just click calculate R. Okay. And here's my R value. Right here. What I would do is you need to make sure you record that somewhere. I could either have a new sheet that's like, stats, values, or you can, if you have your IA, you can copy paste it there. Or I'd be like R value of class period and respect is, and then I can paste it. Okay. So that means, right, and that what they don't kind of explain what it means here is that means there's a mild negative correlation, which means my earlier classes feel more respected than later. So maybe I get either they're getting tired throughout the day if you're not feeling respected, or maybe I get tired throughout the day and start being more sassy. Who knows? So next thing you should do right after you get the R value and write that down somewhere that you will make sure you remember, is calculate a p-value, right? And there's another link right here to that calculator. So for this p-value calculator, you're going to need the R-score, which you should, right, which is available over here, right? Think of 0.205, as well as the N. Okay, the N is just the number of actual numbers you put in, which is for the most part the number of participants. It's also on the sheet here, right? It's right here. Here's the N. Here's the R on this page. You go over here, right? Put in the N and R. Leave it at 0.05 because that's what we use for science, and click calculate. I'll run some math. Okay, and it'll give you the p-value. So again, I'd go over to where we record the R value and said p-value of class period and respect is 0.116. I'll just round to 3 decimal points. What that means, and I'll put a little note over here for myself later, it's not significant. What that means is while there is a mild negative correlation, that correlation is not actually significant enough to say it's not random chance. So for example, if I was doing this analysis, I'd have to say, cool, I looked just to see if there's any correlation between my class period and the amount of respect they felt. And based on the p-value, while there was a correlation, the correlation was not due to any sort of class period, but due to random chance and the nature of data in that way. And then again, for kind of my tip for surveys is once you do that again, just keep on doing it. So it's like, cool, maybe next time I go to my data and I want to be like, cool, how does my respect in this class correlate to how supported they feel? Right? I don't have the numbers for that yet, but if I did the numbers, that'd be pretty simple. Make one X, make one Y, go to the website, right? Enter them and calculate R. So after you kind of do it the first time, a lot of it is just kind of repeating the same thing. Again, what you want to do is bring in categorical data, that is data where the participants had a multiple choice answer, convert that into numbers, right? Make a count of those numbers, put in your graphs, and then using those numerical categories, compare them to see if there's a correlation. So I'm going to end up my recording here and start trying to upload it to YouTube. Hopefully it'll be available for class in 15 minutes. So let's see how the internet does today. And